Let's work a magic loop. First, you're going to get a very long circular needle that works for your yarn, and you're going to cast on the number of stitches that you need for your project. After you've cast on, I'd like you to notice where you have your very first stitch you cast on here on the right, and the very last stitch you cast on there on the left end. You're going to slide the number of stitches to the middle of your needle and find the center point. So if you've cast on 30, you're going to go to the 15th stitch. If you've cast on 100, you're going to the 50th stitch. And what you're going to do is pull out your needle cord between that halfway point, just as I'm doing here. And what you're going to do next is slide the stitches that half that's connected to the very first stitch you cast on, your slip knot or your first cast on, up the needle, and leave the second half of stitches, the ones that are attached to the yarn, on the cord in the middle of your needle. So I've got 2 loops of cord sticking out on the side of my work. I've got the active stitches on the knitting needle and half of the stitches that are not active on the cord. I've made sure my stitches are not twisted, and I'm going to begin knitting that first stitch with the yarn that is attached to the last stitch that's on the cord. And I'm going to knit across that half of the stitches. For the purposes of this video, let's just say it's 15 stitches. So I've here knit stitches 1 through 15, while stitches 16 through 30 sat on the cord. Now, what I'm going to do is slide stitches 16 through 30, slide the second half of my stitches up to the left-hand needle, and once those stitches are secure at the top of the left-hand needle, I'm going to slide the first half of my stitches, stitches 1 through 15, onto the center of the cord. So you'll see half of my stitches are on the cord and half are on the knitting needle getting ready to be knit. And now I'm going to knit those 15 stitches on the top of my needle while the other 15 wait. On each side of my active needle, I have 2 big loops of needle cord. That's what's helping keep this magic loop together. So here I'm about to finish stitch number 30, which means I've completed an entire round. If you put a stitch marker on your piece, your stitch marker will be accessible now. It won't be caught in between the 2 groups of stitches. That would be your halfway point. So I'm going to replace my stitch marker. I slid stitches 1 through 15 up onto the needle, and now I'm going to slide stitches 16 through 30 that I just finished back onto the cord. And there's my marker. And I'm now going to start again with stitches 1 through 15, working those on the needle tips while the other half of my stitches are waiting. So here's 1 through 15. Once I've finished those, I'm going to pull the loop so that stitches 16 through 30, my second half of the stitches, come up to the knitting needle, and then I'll slide stitches 1 through 15 down onto the cord, and then keep repeating that process. So as soon as you've finished one half of your stitches, slide the next group up to the left-hand needle, and once those stitches are secure on the left-hand needle, slide the second half of your stitches that you just completed knitting onto the cord. Anytime your marker passes through the 2 needles, that indicates that you have completed one entire round. So I've just completed my second round, my marker is there, and I'm going to knit now that group of stitches, that first group of stitches. When I finish this group, I slide up the next group so it's ready, and then bring the other bit down to rest on the cord and continue in that manner. And that is how you work the magic loop. Here we go, just a little bit more to show you, and then I'll lay it out. But this is how you work the magic loop. You've got half of your stitches resting on the cord and the other half on the knitting needles, and 2 big loops of cord on the outside of each half of the work. Happy knitting!